Hi, I'm Amy Fox, showrunner, co-creator, and one of the actors on The Switch, and you are watching Mr. Media.
I'm Bob Andelman, and this is a Mr. Media interview. You can see, hear, and read more than 1,000 of my previous celebrity interviews at mrmedia.com. That's mrmedia.com. Subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcast, iTunes, Apple News, Mixcloud, Spreaker, TuneIn, Google Play, or Stitcher, and follow me on Twitter and Facebook. On today's show, I'll talk to Amy Fox, creator, showrunner, and writer, and co-star of the TV sitcom The Switch. Stick around. The Switch, a new TV sitcom from creator Amy Fox, who also co-stars in it, is about being true to who your heart tells you that you are, even if your biology and anatomy are a little at odds on the issue. In other words, to quote the great creator of Looney Tunes cartoons, Chuck Jones, pronoun trouble. The show, which bills itself as the world's first transgender sitcom, follows Sue, an American who relocates to Vancouver to start life over in a new gender identity. Nyla Rose plays Sue with great warmth, joie de vivre, and no fear of pratfalls. It's a workplace comedy of sorts that is genuinely funny and cleverly written. And, I will admit, the first episode left a bit of a tear in my eye. By the way, the predominantly transgender cast features all trans roles played by trans actors. The first 6 episodes became available in the U.S. and most English-speaking countries via video on demand on August 15th. That means you can see it for sure on Amazon and iTunes, and check your local cable listings. You never know where you're going to find this. If you enjoy a splash of diversity in your comedy, I recommend The Switch. Amy Fox, welcome to Mr. Media.
Oh, pleasure to be here.
Good to have you. Enjoyed chatting with you as we led up to this. I got to ask you, tell us something about finding the right tone for a show that really has not a lot of precedent.
Oh, the tone, eh? One of the things about working with other writers is they've been able to say, okay, no, dial back the dark part a bit, a lot. No, keep dialing like a rotary phone all the way from 0 and then around a couple more times. As far as tone goes, I mean, we started this thing as a comedy routine, actually. Beth Marston and I, back in 2009, we wound up in different cities, and we're trying to figure out how to keep it going. We found out about short films and web series and didn't know how hard it was, and we're like, yeah, that's going to be awesome. So we just had to learn how to write, produce, and act. That's all. So it took us about 7 years, and we made a web version, and we've now made a TV pilot and a TV series of 6 episodes. And throughout that process, it's been a lot of back and forth with different people in the community. We've read things in public to get people's feedback. And as far as tone goes, we just had to be not afraid to take on anything that was important. Mm-hmm. These very common experiences about looking for housing and trying to find love and realizing that your roommate is up to something desperately illegal and is probably killing oil lobbyists for carbon offsets in some way, and then getting into a fist fight over the bills and hallucinating that you're a starship captain.
The usual stuff.
Been there.
Yeah. The usual, yeah.
Yeah. I think everyone's been there at some point.
I think you're right in terms of dealing with job and gender identity. You think, oh, what's the big deal? But I mean, it's a challenge, and Sue in the first episode has to deal with just that subject. I mean, she comes out to her coworkers, and it doesn't go so well.
Well, yeah, I mean, the like you said, she's leaving Trump's America to come work as an IT worker in Canada, come out as trans, then 24 hours later is sleeping on her ex's couch.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes how it is. I mean, people can go somewhere safer, but there's nowhere where people aren't going to be dealing with discrimination in multiple ways. Mm-hmm. And we didn't want to pull any punches there or say no, everything's going to be great. But what does unfold across the show is that, well, the universe might be a hostile and dangerous place. The capacity for community to come together and for people to support each other can really face down a lot. Mm-hmm. And make changes and unite beautifully dysfunctional human beings.
And we see that a great deal with Sue and Sue's roommate, who is let me think. Yeah. Any guesses? Who would Sue's roommate be?
Oh, I mean, who plays Chris?
Yeah.
I play Chris.
Yes.
I play.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't set that up very well for you. But yeah, and there's some reference to a unsuccessful previous date
Yes.
that the two had. It didn't go well.
No, the hazmat team got called. That is correct.
That's right. They're being let out to a. It's bad. Well, let's stick with Sue for just a second.
Yeah.
So you write this series. How do you find the right person for that role? Because the actor is going to get a lot of attention because everyone's focused on that person. It's breaking a lot of stereotypes. How do you come by Nyla Rose?
Well, it's an interesting question overall because it has to do with casting trans people and trans roles, or actually like any kind of often mishandled diversity casting. A lot of the time when people are making some like Oscar bait tragic biopic, they go, oh, well, we couldn't find any trans people. And I keep looking at this and I'm thinking, well, that's strange because you had millions of dollars and we had, a shoestring budget. We're borrowing office space when we can get it. And yet we can find 5 trans and or non-binary lead actors, plus other like trans people throughout the show, plus trans people on the production team, writing team, and the like any team you can really think of has some sort of trans person in it to get this thing done. So how do we do it? Well, we look for trans talent like we would look for someone for any other job. We make it easy to find. So when you're trying to find like a bookkeeper or something, you can go on Craigslist and post it there if you want to. You can go on all these different sites, and that's what we did. We didn't assume that people had agents. We made sure that people had enough time to turn their tape around. And we wound up with like over 100 submissions for Sue. We wound up with over 70 auditions. Nyla was the best. And Nyla, by the way, is also a professional wrestler, which is part of why she's so good. Well, there's points where she'd just say to the camera team, "Hey, can you back it up about 2 meters?" And the first time she did this, we didn't know why. It was just like, okay, actors want to do this last take, that's fine. And at the end of the 3rd or 4th episode, this is all off camera. You can hear this thump, 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 bang. That might have been pretty loud with my mic. Anyway, because Nyla just like took a running leap and a face plant over a table for something that you only hear happening off camera. And there's another scene like later in the show where she like actually face plants and you see it. And again, we weren't expecting that. And she's thrown a pineapple at me, and that happens later. And that happy face that I have is like, okay, good, I didn't break any ribs. The 4th and 5th episode have extended fight choreography. One is with a women's doom ball team, which is kind of like Calvin Ball for those of you who follow that from Calvin and Hobbes. And then there's a fist fight in a restaurant over the bill. And the fact that Nyla was a pro wrestler, and I got completely sidetracked with that question, but I'm very happy with my answer.
Good. And as you're describing Nyla and the wrestling part, I was actually thinking of the Netflix series Glow, Glorious Ladies of Wrestling. There's a woman wrestler on that show. Looks built a little bit like Nyla. And so when you said that, I thought, wow, these two shows on at the same, coming out around the same time. Just thought it was kind of odd, playing a wrestler and probably not a wrestler, but who knows? Maybe she's a wrestler. And then you have this part for yourself. You could have played any part. You could have played the lead if you chose, right? Why Chris?
Yeah, I guess.
Why Chris?
Well, Chris was based on myself when we came up with the show. Beth came over to where I was living in Nelson. She said, "This is not a house. This is an encampment." Because I was like living out of a series of cardboard boxes, doing a bunch of activism, scruffy, wonderfully butch and genderqueerish, and very staunch political opinions, and we just kind of built it off of there because that's how a lot of great comedians have made their material.
So it was just it was a comfortable fit that you knew Chris.
Oh yeah. And Chris was a real joy to play. I got to go out and learn a bunch of physical skills and then injure myself doing them, like how to load a 120-pound draw crossbow and then find out that, oh, we have to dummy rig this thing with an elastic band that, you know, you can like pull back with one finger, and how to look like you're sneaking around in tactical gear. Yes, by the way, for people who haven't seen it, this is a transgender sitcom, and I'm talking about crossbows and tactical gear. You got to see this thing.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. There's a little bit of eco-tourist there. Eco-terrorist, pardon me, not eco-tourist.
Right.
Very different. Very, very different. Yeah. I describe it as sort of a workplace comedy in part, but I mean, that's because mostly Sue's workplace, but Chris's workplace seems to be wherever Chris needs to go. There's another character, Antonia. Who Chris works with, and just if you start watching the show and you think that Chris is crazy, wait till you meet Antonia. Talk about full blown nuts.
Antonia is a very, very charming sociopath, I suppose. Yeah. I'm not sure if that's the term that people are using anymore. For future viewers, this was recorded in August of 2017. And yeah, she's this just callous, horrible person who at the same time is this very charming ladies' butch, who does not want Sue hanging around Chris because it's going to blow their game. Right. And while Chris is motivated by environmental justice at any cost, Antonia seems to be just happy to kill people now and then. Yeah. There is, and we can't. I wouldn't try to explain it or give it away, but there's a little humanity yet in Antonia, although it's in the first episode. It's kind of for Antonia's own gain, but it is a nice. It is a very sweet touch. Have you had the kind of workplace experiences, or you or Beth had the workplace experiences that Sue goes through? I think a lot of people have had those workplace experiences. Episode 1 is about coming out and then suddenly being laid off. A lot of trans people in even fairly secure and one might think left-leaning fields like IT report coming out, and suddenly all of their performance, their non-objective performance metrics start to drop. I just don't get a good vibe about how you're doing, even though they're like, oh my God, I've never been this on the ball or up to my full potential in my life because I can now fully concentrate on work. And then episode 2 is about Sue going around and looking for work. And you've got your references have I know you by a different name, and in Sue's case, she's also an immigrant. It's a lot. There's a lot of injustice out there. I'm really glad to see that things are changing, but we have a long way to go still. And I'm really honored that we've been able to make a show with a huge amount of public support that can put that into a comedic perspective without losing the realness of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm straight for what it's worth, but I mean I enjoyed the show. I thought it was funny. It was just funny, the same way that I think. I mean, I don't know anything about IT, but Silicon Valley is funny to me. I'm not Indian, but I now that I've said that, I don't know I don't know if Aziz Ansari is Indian or where he's from, but a Master of None, same kind of thing, right? It's just if you can have some empathy with human beings, you can enjoy the show, and it's funny. I mean, it's just very funny. That I think one of my concerns in approaching the show was, is it just going to be
all trans all the time?
Well, partly that, but is it are they this is a very heavy lesson with a few jokes thrown in. No, it's just a funny show. You'll get something out of it. You'll understand a little bit about some people. Maybe maybe you don't know, but it was funny, and it's very cleverly written,
Well, I think that's actually, if I may, the key to diversity in media is when you have people who are coming out of the portrayed communities, what we're used to is actually being the heavy moral lesson in the story of the majority. And when it's like, oh, we're going to tell our own stories, okay, this is going to be ridiculous, it's going to be genre, we're going to have like action and comedy and all of these things, that's actually the stories that people want to see to kind of like feel uplifted, and yet at the same time we're going to be accurate, and we're going to show people real things that are happening around them that they haven't seen before. And then people can tune in and be like, oh my God, this is like, I've never seen something like this. Usually this is so depressing. And it's like, well, yeah, if you actually make groundbreaking television that's like advancing the human rights of a marginalized group and hire people from that marginalized group, you wind up with good entertainment. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, I guess it's just and fair or something, but it's just like funny or ridiculous or action-packed or what have you. And we're seeing this across a variety of platforms now that more and more people are being able to run their own shows. It's good.
In making the show, are you aiming to make it for a trans or an LGBTQ community first, or a mainstream audience? Who do you envision as the audience first and second, let's say?
Well, I mean, our objective is to kick the pants of television about 10 years ahead. And our audience is really anyone who likes to laugh. Trans people and the families of trans people are watching this and like, oh my God, this is this thing that I deal with every day, except now it's in a sitcom and it's being made, maybe normal's the wrong word for it, but like it's being made like into this usual experience. And for people who aren't familiar with this, they're like, oh, hey, I can watch this and it's fun. And that's our objective, is to sort of like slide everyone's viewing experience to something better.
How much do you feel you had to explain to non-trans viewers what the trans lifestyle or experience is all about?
Well, in the pitch Bible, when we were trying to take this thing around to MIPCOM, where a bunch of TV is bought and sold, that one had a glossary, because it's a bit of an old boys club.
No kidding.
Very.
Next thing you're going to tell me it's an old white boys club. Well,
the companies that are coming to buy television for China aren't white, but they're Han. It's pretty much the absolute majority across the board. I mean, and people who are also have this almost avowed disinterest in diversity, where they're like, oh yeah, well, Sex and the City was a little out there because it's about women. And they're like, I'm talking to people like 4 years ago who still consider Sex and the City to be kind of transgressive, you know.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, for anyone watching at home, that's why television on broadcast TV is the way it is.
Was it difficult? No, it's okay. Was it difficult to arrange distribution with iTunes and Amazon? Was that were they welcoming, or was it a process?
Oh, iTunes and Amazon were great. I'm really glad to see this move away from television that's reliant on like skittish advertisers and has like 1,000 middlemen, because the money's actually coming through people who are trying to sell soap and never offend anybody, and then that winds up percolating into like what we're allowed to see, to like subscription. Watch subscription television like HBO, and they're willing to take more risks because it's like, no, we only care about our viewers. Then you see things like subscription like Netflix, where it's like, hey, if you don't like this show that's on right now, there's a dozen other shows that are on right now. And then VOD platforms were like, oh yeah, I'll just make sure that the sound sounds proper and that you have the same number of episodes as you promised. And they have like quality control. We went through a service called Distributor. For media creators out there, if you want to go through Distributor, they will hook you up with iTunes and Amazon and Google Play. They're fantastic. They're concerned about the quality of the show, not pushing some anti-diversity mandate. And the other wonderful thing about trying to put things out there with iTunes and Amazon and Google Play is that you need a much smaller audience to produce a much higher quality of work. So while a TV show needs to get, like, if there's not 4 million people watching it every week, we're in trouble. With us, we're like, hey, if 100,000 people can get season 1, we can make season 2.
Good.
So, yeah.
And was the show ever called anything besides The Switch? I mean, it's a perfect title.
We tried to rename it. like when the Nintendo Switch came out, we're like, oh, can we change the title sequence still? We thought about calling it something else when that Jennifer Aniston movie called The Switch came out. We this is the only name it has ever had. Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of the end of that anecdote, I'm afraid.
That's all right. There's a line I like. I think I know it was in the trailer. I'm not sure if it was in the episode or not, but it's Sue saying, being transgender is all about embracing change. And I was wondering if you might talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. We make a lot of movies where you have this hero's arc, right? Somebody starts off as a bit of a schlep, and by the end of it, they're kicking ass and taking names or getting the romantic partner that they were always hoping of, or otherwise have been transformed as an individual. And a lot of that has this younger protagonist, and part of that's because our society has weird ideas about age, but some of that's also because we're thinking about how people change as they grow up, how people change as they become adolescents to adults. And when people come out as trans, there's this thing that whether people are doing it medically or not, that kind of like unlocks in people's head where you go like, oh, this is the gender and the role that I am and I can fully contribute to society as. And there's this amazing change that can percolate through people if they are given the opportunity to shine. If people can have that stable housing, and can continue to go to work or school or what have you, people will do so, and you will find things from them that they've never shown before. And if people can be in a place where they can embrace that change that's happening in their life, you wind up with this like emergence of a full person. And I hope that our show can encapsulate that, and I think it does.
Have any of the cast members, since the show has been released, it's been out. That's a funny word to use, but it's been available in Canada, right? Previously, and now we're recording this on August 14th. Tomorrow it'll be available in the U.S. and other English-speaking languages, English-speaking countries. Any stories from cast members who maybe their families have seen this and maybe it's helped them in being accepted, or their communities?
Yeah, well, we've actually had a few people who said they've come out because of the show.
Oh.
Not the main cast. We've definitely had someone in the main cast feel like they had more license to really examine what's going on with themselves and their own gender. We've had one of the stories we had, we added people's pronouns to the call sheet, the little piece of paper that everyone on the film set gets every day. And we had these the grips are the people who like move around all the heavy stuff on set. And so like imagine in your head what a dock worker looks like, and something like that. And on the first day, one of them was like, what's this pronoun thing on the sheet? Like, I don't know. My job is to make sure all of everything stays exactly where it should, and we move things around without smashing into things. Day 2, there's a day call for a grip coming on, and this older grip is like, so what's your preferred pronoun?
Wow.
We have like little changes like that all over the place, and it's been this really wonderful experience that if you can give people just a little license to embrace something new and good, that they will do it.
Pronouns are important in the community, right? I mean, and it's not as simple as he or she. It can be they or them, and it can be a little confusing. And you know, I have some experience with this, and it takes a little practice, because this is not 5 years ago. Even this was not as commonly discussed, but. Is there an episode that deals with, as I referred to it in the introduction, pronoun trouble?
Actually, it's only dealt with very briefly in the show. We don't talk about it a lot. The first episode, when a cop shows up at the door, one of the characters is quickly saying, like, "Oh, I'm over at her apartment." Oh, her? Yeah. Oh, good.
Right.
I think that's right. And then in episode 3, one of the characters is using they at school, but we don't really dwell on it. It's just this thing that the characters have to deal with it. Like one of the characters gets called different pronouns by everybody, and doesn't seem to give a damn. Um,
Now,
whereas, oh, go ahead.
No, finish your thought, Amy. I'm sorry.
Whereas, like other characters, their pronoun is like important to them. Being called he or she or they is something they care about. One character is more flexible in the more like the she or they space. It changes, and another character is like he, she, they, z, and no one has actually even asked this character what their gender identity is. That's Chris, by the way, that's the character I play.
Right. I wouldn't ask. I think that's personal. It's not for me to.
Pronouns? Oh, actually, just for people out there, it is okay to ask what someone's pronoun is.
Okay.
As long as you don't mind getting asked back. Yeah, people are usually pretty happy to.
That's a good. As long as you don't mind being asked back. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Now, there is another series that has a prominent trans character, obviously transparent, but it's nothing like The Switch, right? I mean, I see you covering your mouth. Should I not ask you about transparent, or do you have any?
No, go for it.
I mean, there's not too many shows that have out trans characters in them, let alone trans actors. When that show came on, I think they're going into their 4th season now. You must have been a little suspicious of it and a little concerned, maybe?
Well, they actually came out the same week our pilot aired.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, in 2014, we both came out within a week of each other. And just for people, so people are aware, the pilot aired in Canada in 2014. The new version of the show has been available in Canada on one of our cable channels called Out TV for about a year. But it's completely different from the pilot, like different genre, different cast, different writing. Very happy with how things have changed between that and now. I'm glad that Out TV, our broadcaster, is with us. But I remember when Transparent came out, I was just like, this is going to make our messaging so much harder. Because then we say, like, no, our trans show about the trans experience has trans people in it and was created by trans people. And I think it's important to do that. I don't know. I don't really know how to go on with that one. Anyway, Jeffrey Tambor has been very magnanimous whenever he's accepting awards and saying, like, this is fantastic, but I really want to see more trans people on these stages. And they've, over time, like, added a trans person to their writing team and added trans people to their crew. But we were like, we've been doing this since day one on a much smaller budget. So we win. I think that's what the moral is.
There you go. That's the moral of the story. Now, we were talking before the interview actually started about Vancouver, and it is. I was just there for the first time last fall. I'm hoping to go back again this fall. It's an incredible amount of TV and film production going on. You mentioned before that Deadpool is being shot very close to where you are.
I was looking out the window to the mutant containment truck rolling past yesterday, and my friends who live near there have like snaps of Ryan Reynolds on his little moped.
It's very cool, right? But from what I remember reading when we were up there, and my wife and I bounced around to a number of sets. We stayed up all night and watched them shoot Supernatural, some scenes from that, and I'm trying to remember what else we saw. That was the main one, I think, that was recognizable at the time. But because there's so much production, we were also reading about how sound stages are in short supply, and crews, and so it's like the best of both worlds. It's like there's a lot of production, but I imagine it's a little tough too to squeeze in here and there, especially kind of low budget.
Oh yeah. We shot The Switch when things were just ramping up. We wound up getting an industrial site that had been partially converted into a stunts and wirework area, where we were below an overpass next to a tugboat lane, next to a railroad, and under planes taking off. The fact that you can hear anything speaks very well to our sound crew, who really went the extra mile. And we had to, beg, borrow, and I guess you can't steal a location, but you can definitely shoot there without permits.
Not that you would do that. Oh no.
Well, is it deniable at this point in the sentence? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
And the other odd thing about our show is that it's Vancouver. It's actually set in Vancouver. there are all sorts of shows that are shot here. Like Travelers is shot here and pretends to be Seattle, and iZombie pretends to be Seattle, and it's also Riverdale and The 100, and it was Caprica and Battlestar Galactica, and so on and so on and so on. And yet there are these parts of the city that everyone's like, oh, wait, if we show that, everyone's going to know where it is. And we just went, we can actually, point the camera at exactly what Vancouver looks like and not have to pretend. And it's nice.
Oh, it's a great city. It's just a wonderful city. Anyway, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Telling other people, it's a great city. If you've never been, go take a week, take 2 weeks, go visit. So you've got one season done. You mentioned you'd like to get the opportunity to do a second season. Where will you go with the switch in season 2, given the opportunity?
Well, season 1 ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. So in season 2, we get to find out what happens with Chris and Antonia's assassination business. Sue gets to sort out if she can stay in the country. Phil remains a pretty horrible person, but starts having personal attachments. And Zoe continues on at school, although they get involved in what happens with Chris and Chris's assassination business. Also, Sandra is a cop, and there's something involving assassination. So things continue to be resolved. Characters continue to change. But unlike a lot of other shows, we're interested in maintaining the pace of character development. A lot of the time, people will be like, oh, season 1, there's this big arc, and now season 2 through 8 will have another equal arc. And we're just like, no, this is just going to keep going. Things are going to keep changing.
Zoe did seem like a likely character to follow Chris into the business.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely got that.
I mean, we have an episode where episode 2, where Zoe literally follows Chris as Chris is at work.
Yeah. What do you need the crossbow for? I saw that. All right. Well, listen, folks, you can find The Switch on your local cable TV listings, video on demand, Amazon. It's available on Amazon. Go ahead.
I don't think it's on cable TV listings yet.
Oh, I was thinking it's video on demand. So
Oh, I see.
So some places might find it, maybe not.
Okay.
But Amazon for sure.
Yes, Amazon and iTunes for sure.
iTunes for sure. Okay. Let's stick with that. Amazon and iTunes for sure. And, you'll find it. It's out there. Is there a website for the show?
Oh, yeah. You can find our website at welovetheswitch.com. You can find our Twitter at welovetheswitch. You put We Love the Switch into Facebook, it'll take you to us. And our Instagram is also We Love the Switch.
All right. And just before we started the interview, I liked the show on Facebook. So
Yay.
I encourage people to do that. Amy Fox, I enjoyed the show. Enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on Mr. Media today.
Thank you, Bob. It was a pleasure to be here.
Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience of men and women wearing their genders on their sleeves, not in their pants, in the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida.
Hi, this is Rich Scheidner. If you've ever wondered what it was like to be a stand-up comedian in the 1980s, I'm going to do you a big favor. Instead of billions of dollars for a time machine, you can just spend $24.95 and buy my new book, Kicking Through the Ashes, My Life as a Stand-Up in the 1980s Comedy Boom. It will save you money and give you thrills. It will take you there. Go to my website, richscheidner.com, go to amazon.com, and buy this book.
Keep watching TV, everyone.
Like they're gonna stop.